20 years ago this week, my Aunt Dorothy died of a very treatable form of cancer that was not caught. She had been delivered a false negative when she had gone in for testing to find out what the situation was. A false negative is when you get a result and it is falsely told you don't have something. And it's a hard thing to grapple with. She died at 50, and it just should not have happened. Today is Good Friday. It's the day that we grapple with brokenness and how brokenness and sin warps and changes and challenges how we deal with life. Now, ideally, we would get all of our medical tests 100% accurate. But it's Good Friday. We got to admit, it's not going to happen. It's just not. And so we got to grapple with how do we handle, how do we design, how do we put together tests in a way that acknowledge that we're not always going to get everything right. We got to figure out when, in our own lives, how do we handle, do we lean towards a false positive or a false negative? So a false positive is when a question, something comes up, and we falsely say yes, and a false negative is when we falsely say no, right? And so when it comes to medical tests, we would always rather have a false, I believe we should have false positives. If we're going to design a cancer test, or a way to test for a cancer, some sort of protocol to test for cancer, it's best to be accurate, but if we're going to screw it up, a false positive says you have it when you don't, and it scares people. But it's better to be scared and then find out you don't have it, a false positive, than false negative, which is say you don't have it, and then you won't catch it in time. We can take this and apply it to other situations. Smoke alarms. Which way do you want your smoke alarm to be designed? Accurate would be best. But if it's going to be one way or the other, a false positive is that it's a little bit too finicky, and every once in a while it'll go off. There isn't actually a fire, just cooked something, got too smoky, and the fire. Okay, that happens. Is it worse to have a too finicky, false positive based smoke alarm or false negative, which doesn't go off sometimes when it should, that says, no, there isn't a fire when there actually is? I will put up with being annoyed by a smoke alarm that's a little bit too finicky compared to the risk of having a smoke alarm that gives false negatives and the house burns down. It's not always a given, though, that false positive is best. A false positive is better with medical testing or smoke alarms, but when it comes to our justice system, what's better? If we're saying this person is a criminal, that's what the justice system is determining. This person is a criminal. To give a false positive is to say this person is a criminal when they're not. To give a false negative is to say this person is not a criminal when they are. Our justice system is built on the false negative being better. A false positive is better, so the justice system is built on the assumption it is better that a criminal walk free than an innocent person be jailed. It's better to be accurate. Not always going to happen. So we lean one way. We design the system so that you have to have a unanimous jury. It is better for a criminal to walk free than for an innocent man or woman to be imprisoned. So depending upon the context, false positive or false negative really is where we need to lean. So let's look at how. Let's take this learning we're doing, let's apply it. Let's look at what Jesus did. Jesus had 12 disciples, and he was making a decision. These are the 12 people who are following me. These are 12 people. If Jesus would put it in the framing of false positive, false negative, Jesus was asking the question, are these 12 disciples really, truly committed in following me? Was he 100% accurate? No. It's not that Jesus wasn't perfect, but he's leading people, and people aren't. So Judas was not committed to following Jesus. And so when Jesus had to pick between false positive and false negative, he went false positive. It is better for me to say all of them are disciples rather than have false negative. And practically what that means is if Jesus is looking at his disciples and who do I bring into Passover, whose feet do I wash? If Jesus had to pick between I'm going to wash all of their feet at the risk that one of them isn't actually a disciple, Or the other option is I'm going to wash 9 of their feet, cut off the bottom 3 that I'm worried about, and get rid of Judas, but the 2 others who maybe they're not. Like, Jesus picked to serve all 12 rather than cut off the bottom 3, whatever that might mean. For Jesus, it is better that one person be called a disciple rather than someone be cast out falsely, a false negative. And this is something that Jesus does multiple times, right? This is something that shows up in Jesus' ministry multiple times. Jesus feeds the 5,000. Did everyone understand, commit, follow Jesus from that 5,000? Of course not. Jesus still fed all of them. He leaned one certain way. Jesus tells us that God sends rain on both the righteous and the unrighteous. There's a lean there. If you can't understand everything, if you're going to make a mistake in a way that describes the better to people. It is better that all be called disciple rather than the other option, which is we start cutting people off because they don't belong or they're not good enough. It matters a lot because this impacts how we love our neighbors. This is not abstract. This is very real. We live in a time right now where means testing, saying that if you're going to receive assistance, it is becoming, you have to demonstrate that you need it, you have to demonstrate you're trying, you have to deserve it, that you prove that you really need it, right? That is becoming far more common. And so I'm just going to put my cards on the table and tell you, when it comes to how my tithe money is spent and how my tax dollars are spent, I would rather help more people on the with the chance that someone's going to walk away and think they pulled a fast one on me than help less people and cut off someone who really does need it. And so how that plays out is when people come to the church, they always walk away with food. Everyone gets hungry. And I would rather some people walk away each year thinking they pulled a fast one on the church. I mean, Jesus, 1 out of 12, that's 8%, right? 1 disciple out of 12 walked away. Judas might have been thinking he pulled a fast one on Jesus. And I'd rather have some people walk away feeling like they pulled a fast one than have anyone walk away thinking I needed food and that church ignored me. I just won't. That's how I go, because that's how I see Jesus treating people. And yes, it is complicated because food is different than bill assistance. If someone walks in and asks for bill assistance, like if you walk in and ask for food, like here, food, go, take the food. Bill assistance is a different beast. Like if we're going to help with bill assistance, I take time. We look at incomes, expenses. We're going to look at the whole situation because the more time you put into assessing a situation, the more resolution you can get, the finer you can drill down and see, the more accurate the test can be, so to speak. The better smoke detector you can have, the better medical test if you have more time. And every situation is worth all the time you can give to it, but we don't have as much time as every person deserves. So we have to figure out how to make decisions based upon loving our neighbor, loving them like Jesus, and not having enough time to make an absolutely accurate answer, question, determination every single time because we're broken. We just don't understand everything. And there is always going to be a complication. There's always a complication. So as I said, I think it is Christ-like to help more people knowing that some people will be helped when they didn't need it than to help less people and have someone who needed it not receive it. And I acknowledge as well that there's a cost to that. A program will cost more if we're helping more people. That's the cost of our faith. That's the cost of following Jesus. Jesus talks about carry your cross, take up your cross, follow me, the cost of discipleship. I would prefer just to get it right every time, but as I said, it's Good Friday, the day we grapple with the broken nature of humanity. This isn't the day to think about always getting it right. This is the day to acknowledge that when we get things wrong, we have to figure out which way we're going to veer. And personally, I plan to be wrong in a way that doesn't hurt those who need it.